Okay guys, in this video, I'm gonna go over why I don't regret coming off anabolic steroids. So today is April 15th, 2022, and I came off anabolic steroids and testosterone on November 15th, 2020, so 17 months ago. And I had, 255 pounds of muscle back then, much thicker neck, much higher traps, so just much bigger appearance, much more imposing, intimidating presence. And my numbers were obviously much higher than they are now. So it's been a tough road, but there's a few reasons why I really don't regret it, and I'll go through them now. I have them written off to the side here. One of the main reasons, it's honestly just taxing mentally and physically to constantly be pushing to better a 900-pound deadlift, or to constantly be pushing for an 800-pound squat or a 500-pound bench. These numbers are going to vary person to person, but that's why you see a lot of lifters in the game drop off. You see a lot of people who have a really big meet and they look like they're destined for great things, and then they just drop off because it is so taxing to continually push to that level where it becomes all-encompassing. That's all you think about is, how can I better these numbers? And most people at some point, life gets in the way. They have kids, they have a family, they get married, they have a personal responsibilities as far as a job that takes up a lot of hours. They have things that get in the way where they can't have this all-encompassing focus on training. And that was one of the things for me as well. Like, I'd been pushing hard, focused solely on bettering my numbers for almost a decade, if not longer, because I started doing this when I was 14 years old, and now I'm 30. And in my late 20s, it just became way too taxing. Like, I didn't want to do it any longer as far as pushing to that extent. I didn't want it to be my sole focus of my life. And everything else kind of falls by the wayside when you're pushing to that level. It just mentally wears you out, and you don't have time or the energy to focus, anything like that, for other things. So that was one of the main reasons. Another reason is honestly the industry deaths. Like, seeing what's going on in the industry right now has really affected me. So seeing like Dallas McCarver, when he passed away, that obviously hit close to home, as during my time in Kentucky and during my time here in Tennessee, I was around him, training literally next to him in some cases. Not right next to him, but we trained in the same gym at many of the same hours. So seeing that really hit close to home, because we were the same age as well, and I didn't know you could pass away in your 20s from this kind of stuff. And then some of the recent deaths as well, it's been tough, Boston's death and some other guys, seeing a lot of the bodybuilders pass away, it makes you realize there's consequences to this. Like, when the movie Bigger, Stronger, Faster first came out, I remember John Romano saying, "Where are the bodies?" And at that time, we really hadn't seen this kind of lifestyle catch up to anyone. But now we're seeing that, it's kind of a decade later, it's happening, where the bodybuilding deaths are just mounting. And it's not so much in the powerlifting industry, but I even know powerlifters who, once they hit their 50s, 60s, things start going downhill pretty quick. So I just didn't want to be another statistic, and I didn't want to pass away in vain for the pursuit of strength. Like, there comes a point where you have to put your family first, and you have to put other things first above it. And that kind of ties into what I said before, but once I realized the consequences of this, it made me completely decide to change my lifestyle. Because during my 20s, I didn't care about my health at all. In your 20s, you think you're invincible, plain and simple, you think you're invincible. You don't think about death and that kind of stuff. But as I got to like my late 20s and even 30 now, it's my mortality has been on my mind a lot more. And I even think about what the damage I did over that 9 years, like what did all the trend do and all that kind of stuff. So that's another thought. Another reason, I don't want to be a slave to the needle. Like, it sounds so simplistic, in a sense, if we take anabolic steroids and such, we're somewhat of a slave to the needle. Like, you have to be on test all the time. If you miss a shot, your levels plummet. There's no consistency. Like, you have to be on HRT, taking a shot at least once a week to have stable levels. And on anabolic steroid cycles, it was even more. Before a meet, you could be taking shots 4 or 5 days a week, if not every day. So it just is not fun to feel like a pincushion where you're pinning yourself as much as brushing your teeth. It gets old. It gets not, you go into the skin and you pin so much into your glute that there's tons of scar tissue and it hurts. And you're poking through the scar tissue and it's painful. And then the stuff doesn't want to go in there because there's so much scar tissue. And it just becomes a thing where it's like you're always having to take these shots, and it gets ridiculous. At some point, after doing it long enough, you feel like a junkie. You're just like, I have to keep pinning all the time or else I lose all my strength. And I just didn't want things to be up to that. Like, I didn't want to have to rely on that all the freaking time. Like, I'm so thankful to not have to take a needle anymore. And that's like, people ask me as well, why don't you go on hormone replacement therapy? That's a big reason. I just don't want to have to take a shot anymore. I did that for 9 years. I'm so over it. Like, I'm so over having to do that. That's not to say I won't ever go on HRT. You know, we'll cross that bridge in my 40s, 50s, whatever. But for now, absolutely not. Another reason, fourth reason, I feel healthier overall. There's just a general sense of wellness to a greater extent than I ever felt on anabolics. The whole time I was on anabolics, I never felt healthy. But it wasn't a concern. It wasn't something I worried about. But I remember going to meets when I was like 21, jacked up on, 700 milligrams of Tren that week, and you felt unhealthy. Like, you did not feel healthy at all. And the skin, the acne issues, things like that, that was one of my things. And I just did not feel well at all. There was never a time where I'm like, oh, I feel healthy. Like, when you would come off and be on hormone replacement therapy doses, or even 250 milligrams a week of a cruise, that was your healthiest feeling, but you still weren't healthy. So now I feel much healthier. My blood work's not perfect. I did a lot of damage, and there's still things I'm trying to, progress and prevent and all this stuff I'm trying to fix. And that's going to take time. But that's one reason I've become so enamored with like natural supplementation and overall health. I'm trying to kind of overcompensate for all the years of doing the bad things. So I love feeling healthier overall. It's so much better. Fifth reason, training is more fun again, truthfully. Yes, I'm not lifting anywhere near what I was. That's obvious to anyone who's seen what I've done and what I'm doing now. Because steroids do make a huge difference. We cannot understate that. Even hormone replacement makes a huge difference. But it's fun again because it just got to a point where the daily grind of the heavy weights, the really heavy weights, and then just like that, having to take all these, knowing that I would have to take this stuff and rely on this stuff to get a certain level of strength, and without it I really couldn't do that, that grows tiresome. And now it's almost like a new baseline as far as I know the numbers I hit when I was natural in previous years, when I was, younger than 20, I know what I was hitting, and to try to beat those again, it gives me motivation, and it feels like it's all me instead of being reliant on chemicals. Another reason, sleep apnea. So my neck was pretty big at the time, 20 inches or so. Now it's about 17 inches, 17 and a half. And that makes a huge difference in terms of sleep apnea. Also body weight. Now I'm 225 pounds. Back then I was 255 pounds. That 30 pounds makes a huge difference in how my sleep quality is and the sleep apnea. So sleep apnea was so bad during those times, I could sleep for 9-10 hours. Still be exhausted all day long. I'd have to take naps. And I know the easy answer too is like use a CPAP. I've never personally been a big fan of CPAPs. Like, I've tried the nasal ones, I've tried the full masks, and I just can't get comfortable with them. So I've never used a CPAP, although I have one. But now that's become less of an issue because my sleep apnea is not what it was. I don't even know if I have it. I used to snore so bad my wife would complain about it all the time, and now I don't snore at all. So it's just a tremendous difference. I don't want a huge neck anymore. Like, I know that was a big cliche type thing for me. Everybody loved the neck size and the trap size, but it's really not healthy. I want to still lift, and that'll obviously keep some size on my neck and traps and my whole body. My body weight will be higher, but I just don't want to get to the extent where it's like completely wrecking my health. Another reason, just the general lack of inflammation. So my body doesn't hurt. It's not like I have aches and pains everywhere like I used to. I do have back pain that I've been dealing with for about 6 years now, but I don't have the chronic achiness and soreness that I used to when I was on anabolics. So my body was just in a much more unhealthy state. And you can look at the labs, and even it shows this. The labs prove that I just wasn't in a healthy state compared to where I am now. So that makes a huge difference, the inflammation level. And it wasn't something I looked at back then. I had a couple labs done on cycle, but they were few and far between. I didn't want to see what my health was. I wanted to bury my head in the sand and not think about it. Because when you feel yourself in an unhealthy state, you don't want to see what's going on. You don't want to know how bad it is. You know you're not doing something conducive to health. And I think my LDL, the highest I saw, it was about 180. And then I want to say my HDL would get down to like 20. And I've seen much worse on other people's labs even. But it's just one of those things that's like, at some point in your life, you have to weigh the pros and cons of everything. And I do understand in your 20s, like, doing this kind of stuff, because I did it. I'd be a hypocrite to claim otherwise. We all make poor decisions at some point and live and learn from them, and I did that. But now, there's more important things I got to provide for my family. I have a daughter now. I have a wife. Like, I want to be able to live into my 70s, God willing. Even 80s would be fantastic. But if I would keep going down this path into my 30s and 40s that I was doing, taking anabolics, there's no way I would have lived that long. I've already looked at my genetics, and it's shown that I'm prone to heart attacks, heart disease, diabetes. All these things are in my genes. I did a 23andMe and I saw this, and it really scared me. I also checked many of my polymorphisms, my SNPs, and I found many things that tied me to much higher risks of heart attacks and heart disease. So it would be completely reckless for me to ignore that and continue to do what I was doing and be selfish, and I don't want to do that. I want to be here for my family, and I want to live a long life. I still enjoy lifting, obviously. I know the numbers are not impressive. I know they're not what they were. But I love the journey. I love lifting. It's still my passion. I just don't need all this other stuff to rely on. And I know my test levels are low, guys. I know they were 365 on the last one. I think it's going to be a very slow, long rebound to get them back up. It could take years because I did so much damage and abuse for those 9 years. It's not going to happen overnight. But I'm okay. I honestly feel really good. Not at any point since coming off testosterone have I felt poor. I did feel poor, obviously, when my test levels were sub 100 as far as training. It made it really hard. But I've never felt depressed. I never felt like the sense of wellness as far as my overall mental health wasn't there. So I feel perfectly fine, happy, everything on, with the lower test levels. And I do want to rebound them up to 500-600. I've explored many avenues: ashwagandha, tonkat ali, Fedosia agrestis, boron. I'm trying all these things to try to rebound everything. I'm going to try higher protein intake, creatine, just trying all the natural avenues possible to see if I can maximize my performance and health. But health is a 50% focus, along with lifting being the other 50%, whereas it used to be 100% on just lifting. But these are the main reasons I don't regret coming off. I think a lot of our limitations, guys, are mental as far as what we can achieve naturally. We start to stall out. It's a tougher, slower journey without help. And you think, oh, I can't do that. I need this stuff. Or that's the easy way to go. So it's not what you think. But again, I'm not a hypocrite. I'm not going to say, oh, you guys shouldn't do this in your 20s, or like it's bad. I did it. I'd be a hypocrite to tell you not to when I did. I don't condone it. I wouldn't recommend it. You have to think too, if I never went on anything, I'd probably still have pretty good test levels. They'd be 600. And how far could I have gotten without it? I took them way too soon because I just wanted to get there as fast as possible. So this is just some stuff to think about, but I really don't regret my decision. And going on 17 months now, it's crazy how fast the time has flown. I'll be staying off for the foreseeable future, and I'm just excited to see what I can do in the future. I know, like, achieving a 400-pound bench, I've come close, 391. I know it'll be the best feeling in the world. So I still have goals in mind. I'm going to, keep working at it, but those are my main reasons.